At IGES, we developed a methodology and a tool to analyze and visualize the SDG interlinkages. The methodology includes 4 steps. Step 1 is identify the causal relationships between relevant SDG targets and build a qualitative SDG interlinkage model. This was conducted through a comprehensive literature review, including a systematic review, and combined with expert opinions and stakeholder consultations for some specific studies. Step 2 is the selection of indicators for SDG targets, which have trackable data. We mainly use the UN global SDG indicators. For those global indicators which do not have established methodologies or lack of trackable data, we used other proxy indicators such as those from the World Bank's World Development Indicators. Step 3 is collecting the time series data from 1990 to 2019 for the indicators in 27 selected countries. These 27 countries include 22 from Asia and 5 from Africa. And also, we conduct a statistical analysis, the Pearson correlation analysis, to quantify the qualitative interlinkage. And step 4 is building the quantitative interlinkage model and also visualize the results in a network of SDG interlinkages. And outputs include national dashboards on synergies and trade-offs, and the free online visualization tool, which I will introduce later. And the methodology and the tool has been used also with network centrality analysis to rank targets and for supporting the integrated priority setting in a couple of countries in Asia. So for the qualitative SDG interlinkage model, here shows 3 figures. One is on the generic SDG interlinkage model on the left, and 2 specific interlinkage models for Bangladesh in the middle and for Indonesia on the right. The generic model defines the structure of the interlinkages model for 169 targets, and the country models present quantified interlinkages tailored for each country. The colors in the country models indicate either strong or weak or positive or negative linkages based on the correlation coefficients. For the indicators, we used 231 global indicators and the data from the United Nations Statistical Division's Global SDG Indicators database. For those SDG indicators which methodologies were not established or data is not available, we used other proxy indicators from the World Bank indicators database and the databases of other UN and international organizations. As a result, 145 indicators with trackable data corresponding to 113 SDG targets were selected, and the time series data from 1990 to 2019 were collected for 27 countries. Overall, the data availability is better for goals 2, 3, 4, and 9, but less for the environment related goals, such as goals on 12, 13, and 14. On the right side, we can see the data availability at the national level across 27 countries. Countries such as Indonesia, Cambodia, and Malaysia have better data availability, but countries like Afghanistan and Brunei have less availability of the data. By using the time series, we conducted a Pearson correlation analysis to quantify the qualitative SDG interlinkage model for 27 countries. In many cases, full time series is not available for the indicators, and we use the linear regression to impute the missing data. The correlation coefficients were further grouped into 4 types based on their strength and science. Based on the science, the coefficients are either positive or negative, and based on their absolute values, the coefficients can be defined as strong or weak. Based on the SDG interlinkages model for countries, we developed a free online tool to enable the visualization of the interlinkages between SDG targets. Users can select a country, select goals and relevant targets. The selected targets and their interlinkages with other SDGs can be visualized immediately on the screen. I will introduce the tool later. The visualization charts can be downloaded, and all the data is available online for free. The tool provides a couple of visualization options, including showing the outward linkages or the inward linkages, and showing only positive or the synergies or the negative linkages, the trade-offs. The tool provides a function for editing the strength of the links and adding new targets or linkages by the users. I will introduce this in details later. Besides the visualization function, the tool also provides national dashboards in a matrix format on the synergies and the trade-offs between 169 SDG targets for 27 countries. Since the tool was launched in 2017, it has been accessed from more than 130,000 users from 192 countries. And top countries include like Japan, the United States, Indonesia, Denmark, and India, among others. The tool has been used and received recognition from various UN and international organizations, as well as by the national governments in several countries. For example, the tool was selected as one of 10 good practices and cases for the UN 2020 high-level political forum on SDG SDG for the exhibition. And also our tool that's used by Ghana in their voluntary national report was included as an example in the UN DESA 2020 handbook for VNRs. Our tool is also included in the UN ASCAP SDG help desk toolboxes, and included in the United Nations Interagency Task Team on science, technology, and innovation for the SDGs. It has also been used in Ghana, VNR 2019, Indonesia, VNR's 2019 and 2020, and in the development of an interlinkage chapter in the Indonesia's national SDG roadmap. We also use the tool to support governmental integrated policy making as practical applications. For example, in the Vietnam, we use the tool to support the development of the National Action Plan on Sustainable Consumption and Production. Next, I would like to introduce the applications of the SDG interlinkages tool and the methodologies. In some case studies and its recent development by improving the methodology. And the first one is the application of an SDG interlinkages analysis at the river basin scale. A paper on this work was published in Sustainability Science Journal in last year. And the overall study includes 5 components aiming at assessing the impacts of national policy in various regions at the river basin scale through the SDG interlinkages. One of the components is on SDG interlinkages analysis. For understanding the SDG interlinkages at the river basin scale, we conducted a comprehensive systematic review of more than 1,300 references searched from Science Direct. The systematic review helps to extract information on the key elements and their interactions for achieving sustainable development in river basins. Our focused areas or SDGs include land use and land cover change, ecosystem services, flood risks, water demand and supply, energy, cities, and climate change. To review such a large amount of literature, we used the text analysis software, Unbible and KHcoder, to process the text data. We extracted the top words and the top terms based on the frequency of their occurrence in the text and mapped top terms based on the co-occurrence of the terms to identify key linkages among the top terms. And these figures show the results on the top words or top terms and mapped relationships among the top words, top terms based on the word co-occurrence. As a result, 60 top words or terms and nearly 300 key linkages among them were identified. Through the systematic review, we built a qualitative SDG interlinkage model for river basins based on a simplified drivers, pressures, state, impact, and pressure on the DPSIR framework. And each node indicates a key element with the code in parentheses indicate their corresponding SDG targets. And each edge with an arrow indicates the causal relationship between the paired nodes. And green link indicates a synergy or the positive linkage. Red link indicates a trade-off or the negative linkage. And blue link indicates either a positive or a negative linkage, depending on the conditions and context. The qualitative SDG interlinkage model was further validated and tailored to a case study in China's Luanhe River Basin through expert opinions, field campaign, and 2 stakeholders consultation meetings. And to grasp the first-hand information of the Luanhe River Basin, accompanied by a local governmental expert, we traveled over 1,800 kilometers along the Luanhe River Basin and visited the forest conservation areas in the upstream of the Luanhe River Basin, the reservoirs in the middle stream, and the industrial areas in the downstream of the basin. Two stakeholders consultation meetings were organized with the local governments, the Luanhe River Basin Conservation and Management Agencies, and the research institutions. And issues of flourishing cage agriculture in the Panjiako Reservoir in the midstream, and the resulted water pollution in the downstream, as well as the impacts of the governmental's ban on cage fish farming in the reservoir, issued in 2019. Were pointed out through the stakeholder consultation meetings and were integrated into the model. These issues, when we conducted the literature review, they were not included. The qualitative model was further quantified using the time series data collected for 27 counties in the Luanhe River Basin. A free online tool, the interactive SDG tool for river basins, was developed to enable the visualization of the interlinkages. And the user can explore the data of relevant indicators for the key elements in the drivers, pressures, impacts, and responses, and visualize them in maps. And the user can also explore and visualize the SDG interlinkages among the DPIR elements for each county in the river basin. Another application is on the interlinkages of Goal 13 on climate action within the SDGs. This work was published in the Proceedings of the Association for the Advancements of Artificial Intelligence 2024-2022 for Symposium. In this work, we used artificial intelligence and machine learning-based natural language processing techniques to automate the identification of the interlinkages between climate action and the SDGs. In our previous works, we conducted a literature review or a systematic review manually, all with the support of software. A literature review conducted manually is laborious and time-consuming. It is often subjective, based on the expert's judgment, and unable to capture the full spectrum of the interactions in a systematic way. And to address this challenge, we developed an automated process by using AI-based natural language processing, NLP, to systematically extract key SDG linkages from the large corpus data of the IPCC and global assessment reports. The basic idea is to use NLP to extract key terms and map with their contextual terms to form paired terms, and together with the contextual sentences, which can describe their relationships. By using the automated process, data processing time reduced dramatically to a factor of 30 times. Based on the results, we built a system model on climate action interlinkages within the SDGs and visualized the model in a network graph. Each node indicates a top term, and its size indicates the frequency, their appearance in the text. The code in parentheses indicates the corresponding SDG targets. The edge indicates a link between paired terms, and its width indicates the frequency of the linkage. Now we are using the results from this work to support the integration of SDGs into the long-term climate mitigation strategy development in West Java province, Indonesia. In 2021, we conducted a stakeholders consultation on climate action and SDGs, synergies and trade-offs in West Java, which includes two parts. The first part is an online questionnaire survey joined by hundreds of respondents. And second part is a focus group discussion joined by 20 participants who also joined the first stage online questionnaire survey. The results on the major synergies and trade-offs from the SDG interlinkage model were used as the basis for the design of the questionnaire. The consultation results will be used for tailoring the SDG interlinkage model for West Java and as inputs to integrate the SDGs into the development of the long-term climate mitigation strategy in West Java. A third example is the application of the SDG interlinkage tool for assessing the impacts of COVID-19 in Bangladesh and the Republic of Korea. This work was included as a book chapter in the Springer's book on scenarios of environmental resilience and transformation in times of climate change. In this work, by using the SDG interlinkages analysis, we assessed the direct and the derived impacts from COVID-19 in 5 aspects, including the health dimension, economic dimension, social dimension, environmental dimension, and institutional dimension. Further, we used SDG interlinkages tool to assess the impacts of the recovery measures proposed by the country to address COVID-19 impacts. In the matrix, we can see that COVID-19 recovery measures were listed in the first column, and relevant SDGs were listed in the first row. And each entry indicates the potential impact of a recovery measure on the specific SDG target. And different colors indicate whether it is a synergy or a trade-off. Our tool was also used by the national governments in supporting practical policy making in a couple of countries. For example, the SDG interlinkages tool for Vietnam was used to support the development of the National Action Plan on Sustainable Consumption and Production from 2021 to 2030 in Vietnam. In 2019, Vietnam developed the National Action Plan on SCP, which was led by the Ministry of Industry and Trade. In the action plan development process, the ministry proposed policy measures for addressing both sustainable production and sustainable consumption. We provided technical support by using the SDG interlinkages analysis. We used the tool to assess the potential impacts on achieving the SDGs, which were used by the ministry in the consultation with other ministries and in the finalization of the policy measures. And the action plan was approved by the Prime Minister in 2020 for implementation. Another practical application is to support the development of the national SDG roadmap in Indonesia. In 2018, we provided a capacity building workshop to the Ministry of National Development Planning, the BAPINAS, on using the SDG intelligence analysis and visualization tool. Later, the ministry developed Indonesia's roadmap and SDGs in 2019, which includes one chapter on SDG interlinkages. And our tool is intensively used for the development of this chapter. A third example of practical application of the tool is to support integrated priority setting and institutional arrangements in Bangladesh. In 2018, the Prime Minister's Office of Bangladesh, which is in charge of SDG planning and coordination, consulted us for using the tool to support SDG integrated priority setting. We used the SDG interlinkages model for Bangladesh and a network centrality analysis to recommend priority targets for their consideration. In this table, the targets listed in the upper parts are those proposed by both IGs and the government of Bangladesh. And the targets listed on the left of the lower part are those proposed by the government of Bangladesh. And the targets on the right of the lower part were those proposed by us for governmental consideration. So in the beginning, the government considers a set of SDG targets as the priority areas based on their own judgments. Then we provide this science-based evidence to support integrated priority setting for the government. The tool was also used to assess the interlinkages of sustainable infrastructure and SDGs in Ghana. And this work was published in a paper in Sustainability Science journal. The results was reflected in Ghana's VNR 2019 and used as an example for assessing the interlinkages among the three dimensions in the handbook for voluntary national review of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA. Related to the limitations of the methodology, one challenge is the big gaps in SDG indicators and data availability. At the global level, the interagency and expert group on SDG indicators, the IEG SDG, defined 3 tiers to inform on indicators and data availability. Tier 1 indicators have established the methodology and data is available for at least 50% of the countries. And Tier 2 indicators have established methodology, but data is not sufficient. And Tier 3 indicators do not have established methodology. For the initial status of SDG indicators in 2015, which is shown on the right side of the figure, Tier 1 indicators accounted for 39%, and Tiers 2 and 3 accounted for 19% and 27% respectively. Recently, these have been greatly improved, with Tier 1 accounted for 58%, and there are no more Tier 3 indicators. But still, we have 40% Tier 2 indicators, and the data availability for tier 1 indicators vary across countries. The UN SCAP assessed the SDG progress in Asia and the Pacific in their recent report. And we can see that progress towards the SDGs in 5 sub-regions in Asia Pacific has slowed, and the region is not on track to achieve any of the 17 SDGs. For the environment, all 5 sub-regions have regressed on responsible consumption and production, Goal 12, and climate action, Goal 13. And the progress made in achieving Goals 11 and 14 throughout Asia and the Pacific have been very slow or even stagnant. On the other hand, data availability is a big challenge for monitoring SDG progress in Asia and the Pacific, particularly related to the environment, such as Goals 11, 12, 13, and 14. To address the existing technical challenges related to the data gaps and the lack of well-defined causation between the SDGs, a couple of future research agenda can be considered. To close the SDG indicators and data gaps, proxy indicators and data imputation techniques and big data can be used. And to improve the identification of causations, a combination of systematic review, statistical analysis, expert opinions, and stakeholders consultation can be considered. In addition, due to the limitation of correlation analysis, other methods for the analysis of inferred causation based on advanced data science and statistical techniques can be considered. For practical applications, due to the multidimensional and the location-specific nature of the SDG interlinkages, it requires a move from a generic model to location-specific and the context-based interlinkages analysis, and the stakeholder engagement can be a useful tool. And the existing tool provides mainly a diagnostic function. It is needed to extend it to policy assessment and projection-based analysis. Here, I also give some further reference for reading. And thank you very much.